115, 113. Ron McNair has it 116, 112. And Denrick's Top 1000 has it 119 to 109. All three scores go to the winner by unanimous decision. Canelo Alvarez!
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So obviously last night we saw the fight between Canelo Alvarez and William Scull. On the undercard, Montbacoli against Efia Jack, but I thought it was a good fight. I thought the Battle Jack fight, the co-main event, was not bad. But as for the main event, I thought it was awful. And obviously we're going to go ahead and break that down. So before we get started, as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let's get into it right away. Definitely a fight that, no one's going to really remember. I will start with William Scull. This is a fighter that is IBF champion, relatively unknown. I mean, the first time I ever heard of William Scull was when he was coming up to this fight, and I consider myself a boxing fan, so very unknown. And really, this was his big opportunity. You're fighting in Saudi Arabia, obviously for a career higher payday, against the face of boxing, in front of Turki Al-Sheikh. Everyone's watching it. And you really go into a fight and, don't even try and win. I mean, not one time in 12 rounds did, this guy ever let his hands go. He was running, he was moving constantly, and simply not engaging. I always say that, I think that against a fighter like Canelo Alvarez, should you just stand in front of him and let your hands go? No. Okay, because that, that I don't think that's intelligent either. But, you can't just do what William Scull did. I mean, he literally ran, he wasn't even trying to land his jab. He was just, flicking it out there, barely threw the right hand. And it was just a pathetic performance, I thought, from William Scull. Like I said, you get that big opportunity and you're going to look back in years to time and what are you going to say? Okay, yeah, you fought Canelo Alvarez, but, did you really try to win? No, you didn't. You tried to survive. He was happy after every single round, smiling and, smiling at the end. And I really thought it was an embarrassment from William Scull. As for Canelo Alvarez, I thought he, came to fight. But as far as his performance, I was very disappointed. Canelo Alvarez, I think over the 12 rounds, only threw 152 punches. Chris Eubank Jr. threw that in one round against Conor Benn. So I thought Canelo Alvarez was very poor. I thought he was just throwing single shots. I think he looked a bit slow. His feet were not good. He was not cutting off the ring. So as bad as William Scull was, I was actually very disappointed with Canelo as well. I was also a bit surprised at the end of the fight. Canelo looked tired, like he was breathing heavily. I don't really understand that, breathing heavily when you only threw 152 punches. Granted, yes, you had to chase William Scull around the ring, but I was a bit surprised by that. And then obviously after the fight, we saw Terence Crawford welcomed into the ring by Turki Al-Sheikh. Obviously, that's a fight that's going to be happening in September in Las Vegas. And yeah, I always thought that was a fight that Canelo Alvarez was going to win, pretty comfortably. Terence Crawford is someone that's, been a champion at 135, 140, 147. And then he moved up in weight to 154 pounds. I don't think he looked good in that fight against Madrimov. And at times I thought that Madrimov was actually bullying him. And I thought Crawford didn't look anything special at all in that fight. Then asking that person to move up 2 weight classes and fight the guy that's undisputed, who's actually, Canelo Alvarez is actually younger than Terence Crawford. So I thought that, Canelo Alvarez was going to, bully him and get to him and potentially even get the stoppage against Crawford. But that version of Canelo Alvarez that I saw last night, to me, it looked like he didn't have much left. I don't really want to judge it based off one performance, but again, I don't think Canelo Alvarez looked good at all last night. So maybe that fight's a little bit more competitive than I first thought. And yeah, let's see. Obviously, that's going to probably be the biggest fight of the year. Happening in Vegas in September, so let's see. But yeah, very disappointing fight last night. Honestly, that's one of the worst fights that I've ever seen. I was trying to think of some other fights that I can compare to it. Maybe Shakur Stevenson against De Los Santos is up there as well. But yeah, so far a very bad weekend for boxing. In Times Square, I thought the card in Times Square wasn't good. I've been very critical of the fact that there were no fans there. No fans invited. I think that did not help with the atmosphere. And then The first fight, Teofimo Lopez against Arnold Barboza, I don't think that fight really ever caught fire. Ramirez against Haney was terrible. And then Ryan Garcia was very poor in the main event. And then obviously fast forward to Canelo Alvarez against William Scull, and the fight, was actually even worse, which, is quite surprising. So obviously Naya Inoue fights tonight. Fights in a few minutes, getting ready to watch that fight, very excited. And hopefully he can save the weekend. Big Cinco de Mayo weekend. So far, it's been very disappointing for boxing, and especially boxing fans in general. But hopefully Naya Inoue can, save the night. Fighting against a good fighter in Ramon Cardenas. So let's see, and hopefully we can get a big fight. As always, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next one.